Welcome back to the Tracy Take. It is another Monday night here, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tyler, and I'm here with my co-host, and also he's better known as my little brother, Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. Just sipping on some homemade beer from my friend Mark, and so super good. Check it out in your local stores if it is Mark's Garage. But anyways, before we get into that, thanks for joining us tonight at the Tracy Take. Ryan and I, we do these shows now every Monday night around 8 to 8:30 Central Time, 9 to 9:30 Eastern Time, and whatever time it is for you guys over in Mountain and Pacific Time. Not entirely sure what that is, but this is your first time here. Thanks for joining us. Hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when we create new videos. And we are going to be talking about the big six receivers, the six receivers that were taken then from picks 8 to picks 18, and which ones we think are going to have the biggest impact on the team. But we do want to address first, there was some major news that came out in the NFL a couple days ago. No, we're a couple days late, but we do want to talk about the Deshaun Watson suspension. As I'm sure we all know by now, that Deshaun Watson was suspended for 11 games, and he also had to give up $5 million to the NFL. And it's a very serious issue. And Ryan, I really just kind of want to throw it over to you and kind of see like what your thoughts were on just kind of the entire situation from the beginning to now.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily feel like the punishment was corresponding with the actions that took place and some of the claims that were against him. However, I am glad that the NFL did expand it from 6 games to 11. And then also added the fine onto it as well. I would have liked to see possibly a punishment from last year, maybe making him forfeit half of what he gained from the team last season from the Houston Texans. And then also possibly extending it out to a full season. However, I do think that this 11-game suspension pretty much ends the Browns' season unless they can somehow go 500 through that stretch. So
yeah.
What about you? Do you are you and I on the same level?
Yeah, we're on similar pages. I would think at least the season would be would have been somewhat appropriate. For me, it's the Deshaun Watson stuff. Now everyone has an opinion on it, and my opinion is on like there's enough women that came forward where to me it's like I think this was a system that he used, and everyone's gonna have their own opinion on that. But for me, I think the NFL looks absolutely awful. The way this whole thing was handled, and the way Roger Goodell, he seems he's the commissioner of the league. He's the one that comes up with the final decisions, and maybe it's a process that they have or a deal that they have with the NFLPA on how punishments are handled, how there is an outside party that gives a suggestion. But to me, I think that is just an absolutely, if that is what they agreed to, I mean, whoever made that agreement, and Roger Goodell had to be a part of that. It was an absolute awful agreement, because I understand there are nuances to every situation, but then now Deshaun Watson is essentially an employee of the NFL. Now he is representing this company, and if there's any other company with an employee that has this type of situation that goes on, it is that guy is not with the company anymore. Just to say these. Now I understand there's some nuances because it's a football league, but they're the owners of the teams and everything like that. And so there's also NFL has an obligation to the Browns as well. But I think it just looks awful with how they handled it because they were kind of wishy-washy on giving the suspension and let a lot of other people make the decisions for them. And I think this looks bad on the NFL because another thing as well, and I know we talked about this off camera, but several years ago, especially after the Ray Rice incident, there was a big push by the NFL to promote the end of domestic violence. And I remember it was multiple seasons where there's a lot of commercials for that talked about how it should end domestic violence and how to fight domestic violence. And I liked it. I liked it. And I think we're all in support for that and to end domestic violence. And I think this whole decision, it just kind of slaps all that in the face because there's enough evidence that there's enough people that came forward that this was a consistent thing, but because Deshaun Watson's so good, because he was going to be turned into one of the poster childs for the NFL, it seemed like it was handled differently than if it was for someone who wasn't nearly as good. Because Deshaun Watson, give him credit, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, the last season that he played, which wasn't last year but the year before, he was on the Texans team and was by far the most athletic quarterback in the league. He was just on a crappy team. And so it stinks to see that the NFL is acting that way, but at the end of the day, that's how they want to handle business and how they want to handle their image. And we as fans have to agree with it and still watch football or not agree with it.
Yeah, and that's my big thing is granted. So one of the things I think that is giving off this vibe of preferential treatment is the fact that the bargaining agreement was up this offseason. And the NFLPA and the NFL renegotiated suspension terms because they wanted owners to be held more accountable than the players, since the owners are, they're the owners. So, when they decided this process, like when they decided that they were going to switch up the suspension process, they decided to bring in a third party person. Well, the third party that they brought in is somebody who is unrelated to football. Like, she has no prior experience with past suspensions, no real, I guess, feel for how long like players are suspended. And so to put in perspective how her 6-game suspension came across, it took Josh Gordon 3 suspensions to be suspended 6 games. It took Ezekiel Elliott fighting a bodyguard while he was drunk at a concert. And then I think there was a woman involved in that one, and he got suspended 6 games.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, the severity of action is severe, like compared to those other suspensions. And I think for the NFL to come back with even just an 11-game suspensions, this was 24 like sexual assault allegations. Not that doesn't even include the other masseuses that Deshaun Watson's team brought to his defense. And so like he was clearly a repeat offender, and he had done this action 50
dozens of times. Dozens of times,
50 plus times. And so to me, I think the only thing that came out of this is the fact that the NFL's image is extremely tarnished.
Well, and you brought up a great example that I actually hadn't even thought of, and it was Josh Gordon, who had suffered from substance abuse throughout a majority of his career and lost years on his career because he would smoke pot. And I'm not saying people should or people shouldn't. I'll put out, I've done it before, don't mind it. And I think it can be kind of relaxing at times. Can't imagine the stress of the face of a franchise in Josh Gordon, especially then also if you're addicted to it as well. And you said 3 suspensions get 6 games. I know then he had season. Eventually, he lost seasons on his career. That was
on his 4th. He got suspended a game, then 2 games, then 4 games.
So now then we have, excuse me, sorry. And so then now we have this guy right here. So who has all these sexual assault allegations, which seems like they did happen, but it's a hearsay type court. But in my opinion, there's enough people that I think warrant some truth to that. And this punishment is nowhere near the punishment that he got. And I'll show, I won't try and show any bias here, but then also if you look at Calvin Ridley, I think that punishment that he received was fair because we need to maintain the integrity of the game with a year-long suspension for betting on games. And that, I mean, what's worse, like the betting or sexual assault? And as I said, this is all for message over the past couple of years from the NFL, and then this ruling comes out, and it just seems extremely hypocritical.
To me, even like the context of each situation, I think it makes Calvin Ridley's situation look not nearly as bad as it might sound. And then you look at the context of
Yeah.
of the Deshaun Watson situation, and it looks so much worse because it's not like it's one woman coming out saying that like he did this.
Well,
It's 24 women, and then his defense team brought in another 30 to corroborate the story, but to say that he did nothing wrong in their sessions. I'm like, well,
yeah. Well, and so that's where, and I'll add on, as I still remember when I saw the first ESPN ticker, and it was a lady comes out with sexual assault allegations against Deshaun Watson. I think it was around Christmas time, or maybe in ethics. I know we were in our parents' basement.
No, it was around your birthday. Then you were here for your birthday. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, still. So, but we were. Yeah. I was in Atlanta. We were in the basement. We were watching March Madness. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And we saw it, and I was like, "All right, well, let's see what, like let's see what comes of this." Essentially, because it is like it's one person's word versus another person's word. Who knows? Then I remember thinking by the 15th allegation that came out, you're like, okay, that's a little bit different than just a he said, she said type of ordeal. And that was early 2021. So now 18 months later, now we have this finally resolved. It's resolved, but it's not resolved because to me, and this is where like you can't tell me that it's not staged, that the fact that Deshaun Watson's first game back is at Houston. Absolutely no way. There's like, oh, what a coinky dink. That was absolutely like, and to me, I love it as a fan and also someone who has now started to watch reality TV because my wife has got me into that. I will most definitely be tuning into that game. I actually really want to see what a ticket cost because I wouldn't mind flying to Houston just to see the game. But for me, it's like, I mean, I understand this to where, to me, it's like when you look at the decision that they made overall with Deshaun Watson, where it is a business decision because they found that him being in the NFL was more important than him not being in the NFL because of name recognition, the talent on the field that he can bring, the competitiveness that the Browns could have. And then on top of that, then now he is now playing in Houston at Houston, first game back after he screwed Houston. I just absolutely screwed. I mean, what he did with the Houston Texans was absolutely horrible practice, I think, in my opinion, saying they give him a big fat contract in April of 2020. And then at the end of the 2020 season, he's like, I don't want to play with you guys anymore. Trade me. And then he just holds out. He's not going to play. After this entire city and franchise put their faith in you, like, we want you to be the guy. And it's like, it's not enough money, even though you signed the contract. So then now everything that has happened from there, knowing the drama that's going on in Houston, it's funny as a fan to see that he will be playing against Houston in Houston if he does play. But also, though, for me, wanting the NFL to be the best sports league in the world. So this is like it seems shady and questioning the kind of where their ethics are at. Because I understand it's a money making business. They want to make a lot of money, but it's like, do we not have any sort of more morality or ethics at all on top of that?
Yeah. So, and so the last thing I'm going to say is, we actually have a couple comments, but one of the last things I'm going to say is the fact that the NFL even let Deshaun Watson negotiate his own suspension is actually really frustrating for me. Because could you imagine if like that was in like an actual criminal case and he's like, well, listen here, judge, how about I just do 5 years and pay you $5 million.
Well, so
instead of life.
So I'll disagree with you there because I think they do. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so if you know a lawyer, question it. I think they do that. Like but in those instances, those are when they plead guilty and say like, hey, look, we can plead guilty and we'll take this punishment, which is a much softer punishment.
Yeah. But that's for a guilty plea. Deshaun Watson has tried to maintain innocence throughout this whole thing. He's never come out and said, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. I was wrong to do that, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He, even to this day, he still remains remorseless.
Yeah.
And so that so that's my, so that's my thing. We do have a couple comments.
I'm curious what the comments are.
So, one, Ridley is a direct impact on the integrity of the game. I do agree players should not be allowed to bet. However, he was betting on the Falcons. He was saying that the Falcons were going to win.
Yeah, and I want to make it very clear. I agree with the punishment for Ridley. I was using that as a point, as Ridley's punishment was harsher than Deshaun Watson's 11-game suspension. And I think the Ridley punishment is entirely fair. I want to make that extremely clear. Yeah. So even if he was betting on the Falcons, one, he should have a year-long suspension, because why are you betting on the Falcons? That should be a year-long for just being dumb, just in general. But I fully agree. I was using that as an example of his punishment, which is just cheating, or not cheating. Sports integrity of the game is harsher than sexual assault. Yeah. And to me, it's like, okay, that seems imbalanced. If that's a season-long suspension, then if cheating or betting on games is season-long suspension, for me, sexual assault is more than a season-long suspension if betting on games is a season-long suspension. That's just where my logic would be. So
and then so this one is, I guess, directed at me. So Ryan, what should happen to the Crafts? The NFL tied their hands with that one, how they handled Robert Kraft. So for me, while the situations are similar, they're also different. One, the NFL fined Robert Kraft himself. I forget the actual amount of money, but then they also took a 3rd-round pick away from the team. You can't suspend Robert Kraft from games per se. I mean, I guess you could, but you just watch.
I think he did. I thought, I'll double check. I thought he did. Like, he couldn't come to games, couldn't be on the premises for a little bit of time.
Oh, maybe that was a part of the deal, but it's a totally different game. Like, it's a totally different system with owners, because it's not like you can suspend them without pay. Like, and so I think the way the NFL handled the Kraft situation, considering the fact that it was a happy ending massage from a place that offered that, whether it's legal or not is different. And then it comes out after the fact that the FBI was investigating the place for human trafficking, which I don't know this, but I am sure that was unbeknownst to Robert Kraft that place was being used for human trafficking. I don't think that's not advertised at the door. Yeah. Robert Kraft didn't fly in 54 masseuses to wear a tiny towel while he got a groin massage. So to me, I agree that the Kraft situation might not have been handled the best. There still was a 3rd-round pick loss for the Patriots. He was fined and I guess suspended. I didn't see that part. And it was also on one occasion. It was not a repeat thing.
Okay. All right. I will double check here on the Robert Kraft suspension here.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. But I just think nobody looked good coming out of this.
Yeah, and for me, and that's where for me, I want to focus on the NFL, because everyone's going to have an opinion on the Watson scenario, whether there's evidence or there's not evidence, and I'll agree that it's. I haven't seen messages about certain activities that will be done or anything like that from Watson to the masseuse. It is all he said, she said, and so I completely get that. So everyone's going to have their opinion on that. How the NFL handled this situation, though, and how they've comparing this to how they've handled past situations, I think has been very poor, and I think makes the NFL look bad. But at the end of the day, though, football is such an American sport. Give it a season, if that even, and give it a couple months, and we'll all forget about it. So not forget about it, but that might not be the best choice of words, but it won't be as tense as it is right now.
Yeah, I definitely won't forget about it. I will never root for Deshaun Watson again. And sorry, Mom, but the Browns are now the most hated team in the NFL. So,
any other comments?
No, he pretty much just said, I agree, Watson should have gotten Rice treatment.
And you know what? And actually, the Ray Rice treatment.
Yeah.
You know what? And actually, that's a good point because that's such an interesting situation with Ray Rice and this situation because I'll say it right off the bat, what the whole Ray Rice incident should not have happened. Absolutely wrong. He is super remorseful for that.
Yeah.
The fact though that ended his career and he was able to bounce back from that, I think shows like, and maybe you think that was fair, maybe you think it wasn't, but then we're all okay with that because the guy was clearly, him and his wife were having a very tense, tough moment, and he did not act the way that he should have acted in that moment. And it ended his career. He never saw the football field ever again because there was such an outcry from it, as there should be. 2 games, I think 2 game suspension was initially his suspension, then it turned into an indefinite suspension, and then he just got old, and then as a running back, then his career was done.
That did happen when he was like 29, so he was older,
like, but he was
still back end of his prime.
We talked about that though, and I remember he was still a top-notch back. I mean, he was if he's sitting there in the 3rd round in my fantasy, like I'm picking him up. Like he was still a good running back. And now you have this with the Deshaun Watson, and you're thinking it's like Ray Rice, who from all that I know was a model citizen, good guy, had one bad moment that was caught on camera.
Done.
Now you have Deshaun Watson and all these allegations, and he's just going to get 11 games. And the $5 million to me just cracks me up because it's like, you think he cares about? He just got how much money did he get guaranteed?
$245 million or something. Like,
and that's all guaranteed.
No, I think it's like 180 is guaranteed.
Oh, okay. Only 180. Only 180. I bet he wrote him a $5 million check that day. Just be like, there you go. Have it. I'll serve my suspension, whatever.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I was saying, because then right after Ray Rice, we had the domestic violence commercial campaign, and I which I'm all for that well, not domestic violence, for ending domestic violence. And they make that very clear. I'm all for ending domestic violence. But a guy's career was lost from that. There was a big push by it. And that was only 7 years ago. 8 years ago?
8 years ago.
Maybe 10 max. So just a decade ago. And then now this happens. Like, has the NFL's like morals fallen that far over a 10-year period that they're just forgetting about this big campaign that they pushed? Did they never care about the campaign 10 years ago, whenever that happened? And it was just a publicity to try and say, hey, like, show the NFL, like, hey, we're good people, watch our stuff. But they never really cared. I mean, it's probably both. It's probably a little bit of both of what I'm saying. And that's where, for me, it's frustrating to just see these people kind of get away with it, and there's no accountability. So, like, the NFL should have some accountability. I hope, like, I for me personally, if the Falcons had traded for Deshaun Watson, like, I would be really hard for me to watch the Falcons. It's already going to be really hard for me to watch the Falcons this year because they suck. But then on top of that, like, I'd have no reason to root for them or support them, while they're there. So it's like, if we really want some change of it, like that's where it would need to be. But I'm also, we'll be completely honest, I don't know if I can do that, because I love Sundays at 12 o'clock here in Nashville, put on the Titans and just watch them play, or the Falcons and watch them play,
Yeah.
So
that's why it's so Big Ben had a couple allegations.
In Georgia College, actually, and one of them.
Yeah. And so that's like, he did his time and moved on, and I think it definitely put not an asterisk by his career, but the NFL and the world eventually moved on from it. And kept playing. So I do want to go ahead. I do want to go ahead and get on to our other topic for the day. And this is one I'm really excited about. I love the wide receiver position. I really enjoy watching these wide receivers come in from the college level, and I like following their careers in the NFL. And in the first round in this year's draft, there were 6, correct?
Yeah, 6 in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first round. And we're gonna talk about and debate which one we think is going to have the biggest impact on their team in 2022. Mm-hmm. So, just to go through the 6 really quick: Drake London,
Atlanta Falcons.
Garrett Wilson, New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe next it was Chris Olave from Ohio State.
New Orleans
Saints. Jameson Williams.
Yep, Detroit Lions.
Then it was Jahan Dotson.
Washington Football Team Commanders.
And then Treylon Burks,
Tennessee Nashville Titans.
Yeah. Yep. So I have a guy that I really like, but I want to hear who you like first. Who you think is going to be the most productive guy?
So the most productive.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to be the most impactful wide receiver? Who are you picking for this segment?
Who am I picking for this segment? Well, so you multiple questions. Is it who do I think is going to have the best season?
Yeah.
Okay. So the person who I think is going to have the best season, personally, I think is going to be Garrett Wilson. I think you can argue he was the best receiver in the draft. I think he is now coming into a very young, talented quarterback in Zach Wilson. I also think he has several veteran receivers around him that can help improve, that can help take some attention off of him to maybe give Garrett Wilson some more opportunities. Also, on top of that, you have Elijah Moore, who has now supposedly just been an absolute demon during training camp. Started to come into his own last year. It's Elijah Moore, right?
Yeah, Elijah Moore.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if I could forgot his last name. And I think they're eventually going to turn into a big 1-2 tandem. One name, and not being biased, I just think kind of going along with that, I think Drake London could have a really good year solely just because of how big he is. That's why the Falcons drafted him. And Kyle Pitts is such a mismatch that I think that Arthur Smith and his great offensive mind might be able to create some mismatches, and where I think Drake London could have 6 to 8 touchdowns this year, 800 yards on a Falcons team that is not really going to be that good, not really going to be that offensive explosive. And so that would be my 1-2, Garrett Wilson and Drake London, because then I look at some of the other guys and there's just some unknowns really kind of on either their ability or the team that they're on themselves and how much they'll be able to impact. So, how about yourself?
So I agree with you on the Drake London thing. I also think the opportunity on the outside in Atlanta is going to be tremendous. Kyle Pitts is a really great mismatch. He definitely plays more of a big slot. He can play inline tight end. You can spread him out wide. He's that athletic. But a lot of his snaps came in the slot last year.
Well, it's going to be interesting, too, because they traded for Brian Edwards, who's also like 6'5". So you're going to have 6'5" Brian Edwards, Kyle Pitts, who's 6'4". Then you're going to have Drake London, who's 6'5". And so that right there is your 3 receiver set. So it's a very interesting type of receiving core that they have. So that's where there's going to be some opportunities. Will it pan out? Maybe, so, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah. But the guy I'm going with is Jameson Williams.
Go ahead.
There is a big asterisk here, but his speed and route running ability, he can play out wide. He can play in the slot. He was extremely physical at Alabama for his size. I think he was 6'2", 190, 195, that's pretty light for a 6'2" guy in the NFL. He has great hands. He didn't run at the combine because he tore his ACL, but he just probably would have ran a 4.3. He just absolutely torched so much of the top tier SEC competition. And if he can get back and be 90% of what he was, I think he's still the best wide receiver in that draft class. I think he's better than Garrett Wilson. And I like Garrett Wilson, but he's also competing with touches with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios. I think their tight end is still CJ Herndon. They have a wider array of weapons in New York. Also, too, Zach Wilson only threw 9 touchdowns last year. He only played in 11 games, and you expect him to improve, but he's missing a lot of quality time with Garrett Wilson right now because he hurt his knee. And I also really question Drake London's situation and Chris Olave. That's a guy we haven't really talked about yet. Chris Olave's situation completely depends on the progress of Jameis Winston.
Not only Jameis Winston, but also Michael Thomas as well. If Michael Thomas is still the receiver that he is, he's going to attract a lot more attention. But if Michael Thomas isn't on the field or if he's not productive at all, then Chris Olave is going to be getting the number 1 corner a lot of the time. And so I agree with you on that. And I do agree also with Jameson Williams. I wasn't thinking about Williams because of we don't know how much he's even going to be playing this year. But if he was a healthy Jameson Williams and the Lions got him at 12, look out, that offense, because you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're going to have Jameson Williams, going to have DJ Chark, then you have TJ Hawkinson at tight end. You still have DeAndre Swift
out of the backfield.
That offense in Detroit is kind of set. And
with all of that, with a top 10 offensive line.
Yeah.
They were top 10 offensive line last year, and their Pro Bowl / possibly all-pro left tackle was hurt for 9 of the 17 games. Yeah. So Penei Sewell was playing left tackle, then they had a backup right tackle.
I know the Lions, they like to get made fun of a lot, and I mean some of that's rightfully so. But you look at the team, that especially offensively at least, it's like they're pretty good. I think they can hold up their own with most teams. Now, the issue in this where they got Aiden Hutchinson is going to be their defensive front, and their front 7 in particular. But the addition of Jameson Williams, I think in the long run, I remember when that happened. I loved that pick from them because they already got their stud receiver. They had 2 other first round picks and they traded up, and they got arguably the best receiver in the class. And I think that's absolutely worth the chance, and you can give him some time to come back. And so, for me, what are your thoughts on Jahan Dotson going to the Commanders?
I didn't really like the pick. I thought Jahan Dotson was a mid-second round pick. He's just a really small guy. He ironically kind of reminds me of Terry McLaurin. He's a smaller guy, 5'11". He's going to run a 4.4, good at punt return, punt and kick return. And he has good hands and run good routes, but he's undersized and he has maybe slightly above average speed. And so I'm like, you got 2 5'11" outside-ish wide receivers. And I'm like, I don't really like that. I'm not a huge fan of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz couldn't hit Michael Pittman Jr. with his catch radius last year. And so I think Jahan Dotson is probably going to be the worst of the 6 rookies taken in the first round. Production-wise. I don't think he's necessarily a bust. I just think he's not in a situation where he's going to be the most productive. He's not. I don't think he's going to get a ton of opportunity either.
Well, so I'll disagree with you on the opportunity part, only just because last year with the Commanders, now of course they did have Taylor Heineke as their quarterback, and then who's the other guy? Ryan Fitzpatrick as well. But he only played for half a game actually. But so it was Terry McLaurin. I had like over 1,000 receiving, I think over 11, maybe even 1,200 receiving yards. And the next guy, I think had 300 or 400 yards receiver wise. I'm not entirely sure on the tight end stats. But so I think there's going to be ample opportunity for Jahan Dotson to come in and like, hey, you're the second guy. You're receiver 2 for sure, because I think he can come in and compete. So, but I do agree to your point though. I actually agree. That was exactly what I was going to say, is that I think he is a Terry McLaurin-esque guy. I would have honestly liked them taking Treylon Burks there. Or waiting or trading up in the early second round and taking George Pickens or something like that.
Yeah.
Someone who's a
George
little bit
Pickens,
different.
Christian Watson, I think was his name.
Yeah.
So this was a guy that I think the Patriots took too early, but even Tyquan Thornton, a 6'2", 190 guy, like that's a more of an outside wide receiver than Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, because isn't Terry McLaurin like 5'11"?
Yeah, he's like
he's the
5'11",
speedster,
maybe 6 foot.
Yeah,
but he's a speed guy. He's a 4'4", 4'3" guy, I think.
Yeah, but then you have a guy like Traylon Burks, who I think that he would have done great in that role as a guy who still needs to grow, but has some attributes that can't be that you can't teach. It's just like his high, his size and how big he is, and that's where I question. Then now moving on to him on how he's going to be in Tennessee, because they're drafting him to be the guy, and I don't know if he's the guy yet. Now that they don't have AJ Brown, they don't have Julio Jones. Not really sure who their tight end is, because Anthony Firkser is not there anymore.
Oh, really? I actually like him a lot.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he's with the Falcons. I'll have to double check. I'm watching the game right now.
He might be, because he might have followed Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I think he followed Arthur Smith. But he still has things he needs to work on to improve into the big receiver that he can be. But can he come in day one and be the guy? Going into a system like the Commanders, I think that would have helped him out a little bit more, because he doesn't have to be the guy. Terry McLaurin is the guy already, but he needs to complement the guy while working on some things. And his size and just his range would have helped out. Would have fit perfectly within that system. But you're right; they got Jahan Dotson, who I think was a Terry McLaurin Jr. esque kind of guy.
Yeah, and that's so. I think the quarterback play in Tennessee, this is going to be a controversial opinion amongst Tennessee Titans fans, but I think the quarterback play in Tennessee is going to be a lot better than in Washington. And I think that's going to provide more opportunities for Traylon Burks in that fact alone. They do have Robert Woods, or as one of my favorite podcast guys likes to call him, Bobby Trees. But I like him, but he's coming off a torn ACL. And so you just don't really know what you're going to get. But I think that is a better duo than McLaurin and Dotson, because I think those guys are two different skill sets. To me, Burks is more of like a plus tight end. And Woods is like a bona fide X receiver. And McLaurin is kind of like a Z, like he's a smaller outside wide receiver. And you're going to try to isolate him more. Whereas, so is Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson is that guy that you want on to be isolated on the outside. And so that for me is the reason why I don't like the Jahan Dotson pick. And just I think he might struggle with opportunity, because he already has a Pro Bowler playing the position that he excelled at in college. So who knows? We could be way wrong.
Oh, so, I would love. As I always say, I would love to be way wrong, and then they lose to the Falcons in the NFC Championship game. So these are just our opinions on how we think that they're going to go. So but this receiving. I remember when this happened. We're watching the draft live, and it just was boom, 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 trade, receiver, and some of them I liked, when the Lions went up and got Jameson Williams, I loved that pick. But when the Commanders traded up, actually, did they trade up?
They did.
Was this their pick?
I think
they did.
They might have traded back actually, and then taken Jahan Dotson, where they traded back to.
You know what? I think I can check for you here.
But
Indiana to Philly, and then New Orleans traded with the Commanders.
Yeah,
and New Orleans got
Chris Olave.
The
trade up for Chris Olave I didn't like either. I thought Chris Olave was a back half of the second round guy, just because he really struggled in press man coverage. And what are you going to get a lot of in the NFL?
I would have loved James Williams there.
That would have been fantastic.
Much I dislike saying that. I would have loved James Williams there for the Saints, just because they're kind of in that situation similar to the Lions, where they're going through somewhat of a rebuild, and James Williams, who clearly is the best. But I say that though, and actually I also disagree with myself, because the Saints don't have that many picks, so they had to get a player who can come in and contribute. They know they can come in and contribute today as of draft day. And while the Lions didn't have to worry about that too much because they already got Aiden Hutchinson, this was a bonus on top of that. So they can take their time, on having James Williams heal, come back to his 100% health. So I actually could see a little bit of a difference on why they chose Chris Olave there over James Williams.
Yes. I understand the play it safe mentality of like going with Chris Olave because he is like the Jameson Williams light in that draft. But I think if you can stay at 17, you can get Treylon Burks if you don't trade up, and then you still have all the other picks in a draft that, man, do you need young cheap players? So that's I guess that's more of my problem with the trade up and pick rather than the actual player that was picked.
And you know what? Actually, if I'm not mistaken, too, isn't that after they already traded for that pick with Philadelphia? Like they gave up more picks to Philadelphia to get that pick in the teens, and then they traded up again just for Chris Olave.
Yeah, they did. They gave up a first rounder next year for Philadelphia's first and like a third next year for Philadelphia's 17th pick, and then they like swapped. So so there were 4 picks in a row. There was 16, 17, 18, 19. New Orleans had 15, and then Philadelphia had like, I don't know. I don't remember. Philadelphia had all 3 in a row, I think.
No, New Orleans had 18. Let me see here. Yeah, because you're right. Philadelphia
they had 3.
They had 16, 18, and 19.
Yeah. So that's what it was.
New Orleans initially had the 18th pick.
Yeah.
They traded with Philadelphia for the 16th pick. And then Philadelphia traded with Washington for the 16th pick to the 11th pick. Well, then New Philly,
Orleans. New Orleans did.
Then Philly. Oh, go ahead.
New Orleans traded, right?
Yeah. Yeah, New Orleans were an 18 traded to Philly. They traded the 16th pick with Philly.
Okay, and then New Orleans traded the 16th with Washington.
Up to the 11th.
Okay, you said Philly traded the 16th. That's what I was saying.
Well, yeah. They did to New Orleans. Yeah, my bad. Okay. So, but yeah, so I remember thinking that too because we were going through that. They traded all these picks for Chris Olave, and we're even thinking like James Williams is on the board. Well, Jahan Dotson, Sky Moore, Christian Watson, George Pickens. Not saying that those guys were going to be taken 11th overall, but no one thought that Chris Olave was going to be taken 11th overall. So I'm very curious how he's going to pan out. Lastly, kind of what are your thoughts on Treylon Burks? Because he's the last guy we haven't really talked too much about. And being here in Nashville, a lot of people have opinions on him. And so, we're all really excited because he's going to be the guy. I have some questions. I don't think the Titans are going to I don't think they're going to win the division this year. But how do you think Treylon Burks is going to help the team?
So he's like, we've been calling everybody like Chris Olave is Jameson Williams Jr., Jahan Dotson is Terry McLaurin Jr. To me, Treylon Burks is like AJ Brown Sr. Like he's just a bigger version of AJ Brown. Yeah. With that being said, he's not nearly as refined coming out of college in route running, ball skills. His release package is not nearly as refined. He's not nearly the receiver that AJ Brown was coming out, but he's bigger and more athletic. So like you're kind of trading the
but it's interesting though because AJ Brown was a proven thing, was a proven product. You don't know that about Treylon Burks, so that's an interesting thing. I understand why they had to trade AJ Brown because they weren't going to be able to afford him because they already gave Derrick Henry a huge contract. So
I wish they would have gotten a little more. They only got like the first pick and then like pick like 101. Like it was like a compensatory 3rd round pick, wasn't it?
I think they switched. Did they switch picks?
Oh, they only switched picks in the 1st round?
No, they got a couple other things with it. You are right. But yeah, they didn't get too much for him. And so I take that back. I don't think they switched picks at all. But yeah, I think it was a first and then a later one.
Yeah, and then like I
for
think it was
AJ
a
Brown.
later third. I thought it was like 101.
Yeah.
But that was my big problem with it. I was like, all right, you're gonna give up a Pro Bowl wide receiver. I was like, and you're gonna replace him with this guy, and then all you're
For
gonna
an
get,
unproven thing. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, and then the only other thing you're gonna get is a third round pick. And I
Yeah.
was like, I get you have to make different moves to like because AJ Brown said he wanted to leave and he like to get more money. Like I get you have to kind of try to balance that, but I think you could have gotten more.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree. So that to me, I mean, I think they were trying to shop him for a long time with the intention of trading him. And then when it came like draft day, no one was wanting what they were asking for. And so like, screw it. Let's just take what we can get because we know we can't afford him. So
yeah, because they're kind of in a little cap pinch, aren't they?
Well, yeah. They're in a cap pinch. That was the main reason why they traded him. So the only other thing I think that they could have done is they could have traded him mid-season or towards the beginning of the season and maybe gotten some more for him. Like let's say there's a big injury or something like that. But then you run the risk of him getting hurt as well. So
yeah. So that was, I guess that's another point too. They were the 1 seed for a while. Actually, they were the 1 seed in the end of the season. Yeah, they fell off there for a little bit. And so that is kind of hard because they did have those Super Bowl aspirations to trade off a player of that.
Sorry,
caliber.
I meant this season. Like they could have held on to him the entire time. Yeah, I meant this season. Yeah, not trade him last season. So if they were wanting to trade and then just use those draft picks, you could have gotten a good first round pick. And maybe some more. If he's having a good year, but the Titans suck, someone would have given up at least a first round pick and maybe another one as well for AJ Brown. So
yeah, no. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's just kind of and I like Treylon Burks. I kind of had him in the Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson category of like
that second wave. That
second round of wide receivers. And I guess he did go at the back end of the first, so that's not really a huge difference there. But all in all, like I think he has good talent. It's just what they can mold him into, and who knows? I mean, maybe he is the next AJ Brown.
Oh yeah, I know people here in Nashville would love that.
yeah. I mean, hey, who wouldn't love a 1,300-yard, 80-catch wide receiver?
Yeah.
So
yeah, to go along with a 2,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be pretty good. So, but yeah, so final pick here before we close it out. Of these wide receivers, which one do you think is going to have the best year in 2022?
So I'll say I'll put an asterisk because you're right. I wasn't thinking about James Williams because I know he's hurt, but if healthy, all 17 games, I would lean towards James Williams. Still, though, I think I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. I think the Jets are kind of I think he's in the most flexible position because I think he's also the second best receiver ever, including James Williams on that, or was coming into the draft. So I think he can use his athleticism and kind of elite receiving ability to kind of bring some more edge to that Jets offense.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see Drake London go off just because of how physically big he is as well with the rest of the receiving corps. So how is that going to work out? How's Arthur Smith going to work and be open? Other than that, though, I do have a lot of questions about some of the other guys. Chris Olave, I agree with you. The Saints have some questions at quarterback. Also, if Michael Thomas isn't healthy or it's not the Michael Thomas we're used to, then Chris Olave is going to be getting a lot of the attention, and I don't think that's going. Yeah. He's not a Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase could handle all the heat because he's Jamar Chase. And then same thing with Jahan Dotson and then Treylon Burks as well. So I just don't think that they're also in the best systems to promote great success. Just a rookie year. So I want to go with that. Are you sticking with Jameson Williams?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Jameson Williams. I think
if healthy.
Yeah, if healthy. I think he fits that system really well. They have TJ Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of playing in that slot, and they don't really have any outside guys on that team right now. So I think he comes in, and if he's healthy, he plays day one. and he's a starter for them day one. So that for me is who I think is going to be the best rookie wide receiver in 2022. So
okay, I like it. I like it. No.
So I think that is going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Tyler and I, we go live every Monday around 8:30
Central Time
and 9:30 Eastern Time. I've almost said Pacific Time. 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern Time on Monday nights. We just are two guys like talking about football, and if you like to talk about it too, then go ahead and subscribe. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.